Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Richard Cruz, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Warrant Officer Nikolai Rove. We warmly welcome Colonel Dennis Hedstrom, Head of Asia Department, Swedish Armed Forces Headquarters, and the accompanying delegation. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors and students on behalf of the following schools. From New South Wales, Lake Manoora Public School; from Victoria, Miners Rest Primary School; and from South Australia, Manoora Public School, Christian Brothers College Junior School Adelaide, Brickworth Primary and Early Childhood Centre, Watervale Primary School, Napaby Primary School, and Babori Primary School. I invite you all to please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. Students, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the memorial's entrance. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private Edward Howard Spencer. Edward Spencer was born in 1885 to Malden and Annie Spencer of Bendigo, Victoria. As a young man, he went to work at the Stock and Station General, later moving to work as a packer for Jones, Miller and Co. It was reported that he was full of life, physical vigour, and that the employees and employers alike held him in great esteem. Edward Spencer enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force shortly after the outbreak of war in 1914. He was posted to the 14th Battalion and left for active service on board the troop ship Ulysses just before Christmas 1914. In Egypt, he continued training in preparation for an assault on the Gallipoli Peninsula. The 14th Battalion sailed from Lemnos Harbour for Anzac Cove on the 25th of April 1914 at 9:30 a.m. After arriving offshore in the early evening, it was met with lighters filled with wounded coming alongside. Wounded men were squeezed on board throughout the night, with many of the 14th Battalion staying awake to help. The battalion began disembarking at mid-morning the day after the landing, coming ashore under fire throughout the day. They bivouacked that night on the beach, and the next day began establishing a position around Quinn's and Steele's posts on the heights above the beach. The situation on the peninsula remained precarious over the next week, with Ottoman troops attacking the Australian line in several places, including those held by the 14th Battalion. There was also the constant danger posed by snipers, and the battalion suffered casualties on quieter days, as well as those during which they were attacked. On the 2nd of May 1915, Private Spencer was in the front line during a bout of heavy fighting. He was in the act of firing his rifle at the enemy when he was struck by a rifle bullet. His commanding officer, Lieutenant Charles Giles, wrote to Spencer's parents to tell him what had happened. Death was instantaneous. His conduct during the engagement was excellent, and my regret is shared by all members of his company, by whom he was held in high esteem. Private Edward Spencer was buried near where he fell, and today lies in Courtney's and Steele's Post Cemetery under the words, "The Lord gave, the Lord hath taken away, blessed be his name." Spencer was 19 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. A photograph of his headstone is displayed today beside the pool of the reflection. This is but one of many of the stories, service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Edward Howard Spencer, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
lest we forget.
lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys and students, that concludes this evening's last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.